better value for your money. Is not that the dream of any investor or even someone with a bit of extra cash? Well, everyone is talking about getting higher returns, better returns, but as the interest rates have come down, where do people go to? There are various alternative ways that people talk of, but one thing that Sri Lankans are investing and they are on fire with regard to focusing on it is nowhere else but the stock market. The stock exchange in Sri Lanka has seen unprecedented growth, especially starting from the pandemic times. One might even say it's slightly going against some of the fundamentals of the economics of the country. Who cares, isn't it? As long as it's giving you the results. Today on Bisnomics, we are focusing on the stock market of Sri Lanka. How to start investing, what should you know about, and most importantly, as more attention and focus comes on to this, how do we avoid some of the dangers that might be lurking in there, how to avoid getting into wrong advice, and also how to make sure you manage your risk in this. Because at the end of the day, what you want to end up with is ideally more money, if not same amount you had. Now, to talk about this and more, in your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes, we have a specialist who is none other than Dilusha Gamage, who is in charge of investment banking and marketing at SC Securities. Dilusha, welcome to Bisnomics. And may I say that I believe these days the stock market is as attractive as you are today.
Thank you. And yes, I'll take as a compliment.
For sure. Dilusha, now, it seems like there has never been a better time to invest in the stock market, isn't it? I mean, everyone is talking about it, people are hooked on to it, and am I right if I say so, that there's never been a better time to be getting into the stock market, and if so, why am I right?
Well, Tharindu, let me start by saying something that you started at the beginning also. Interest rates are coming down, am I right?
For sure.
Okay. Now you're asking, is it the best time? Well, I'm going to say it's a good time to invest in the stock market. And let me tell you why. So first of all, if you compare the Sri Lankan stock market with the other markets in the Asia, like India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, there are certain factors we can measure the performance of the share markets.
That means to see whether the market is doing well or not.
So there are measures that you can compare the performance of the stock markets. One is PE ratios, the PE multiples. So if you compare this with Sri Lanka,
ratio, price to earnings ratio, I believe.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
What are we exactly considering there, Dilusha?
The market value and divide by the earnings of the total market.
Okay. So whether it's more like to check whether the valuation of the company in the market is
not the company, the market,
the market,
overall market.
Overall market.
I'm referring to the overall market
okay,
compared to Sri Lanka with other Asian countries like India, Bangladesh, Indonesia.
Yes.
So if you compare this, the Sri Lanka is relatively low PE ratio. So that means Sri Lanka is cheap at the moment. And also if you consider the certain sectors of the price to earnings ratios, again, we have many sectors that is relatively low price, relatively cheap, like manufacturing sector and the export-oriented sector, and even the banking and finance sector, telecommunication. There is room to grow, and we are not in a position where it is very expensive market, the valuation-wise. And also, as you correctly said, the interest rates are low, right? And interest rates are low, and there are import restrictions.
Yes.
So with all these developments, where do people have options to keep their money? If the interest rates are low, FDs are not going to give you a better return.
And let's face it, we are looking at like about a 4 to 5% rate in most of the banks. Let's
Correct.
say best case 6%. But then inflation, the cost of living, the rise of the cost of living is also almost at about 8 to 9% or even more than that. So
that means you're at a negative real return.
Exactly. I might as well spend the money I have today rather than try to save it for one more year.
Yes. So the options you have is the real investments. It should be either property or the equity. And property, you need a lot of money when it compares to equity. But if you go for equity share markets, then the general public can afford it and they can invest. And they can make this negative return a positive return with the stock market. That is another reason. And also compared to the other entities and the sectors, as I mentioned, there are better opportunities in the equity market. So as you correctly said at the beginning, it's a good time to invest in the stock market.
Especially if I have not been in the stock market so far, this is the right time to get into.
Yes, you're not too late.
Yes, that's good news. That you're never too late for something good. So that's good to hear. Dilusha, now I know you are someone who is at the forefront of the action. You are involved daily, looking into some of the trading activities that are happening, and you are also quite aware of what's happening out in the market and the overall economy out there. Now, when we come to talking about the overall economy, unfortunately, whether it's online or print media, wherever it may be, we are not seeing that level of attractive news. It's more gloom and doom rather than bloom that we hear with regard to our Sri Lankan overall economy. So, one might say tough economy, high uncertainty, but excellent stock market performance. Isn't it like a paradox? Isn't it going against the basic fundamentals?
Tarinder, usually the negative factors get highlighted more. But at that time, you're forgetting about the positive factors.
They say bad news has wings.
Exactly. So when you consider about the positive factors, now look at Sri Lanka. Now we are getting the vaccination program in Sri Lanka is phenomenal and compared to other countries in Asia. And also, you're talking about the economy. Yes, there are challenges, but is that all negative? No. Now let's say the interest rates are coming down, and also there are import restrictions. So with these import restrictions, there are so many companies, the local manufacturing companies, who have been performed phenomenally well in this restricted situation. And these companies have recorded record earnings for the last few quarters. And that can be the best time for
month on month, we have been passing more than $1 billion in export earnings as well.
Exactly. Export earnings, as you correctly said, is another segment. Dollar earning companies, because the rupee is depreciating, yes, a negative factor, but it is very positive for the dollar earning companies. So the dollar earning companies are doing really well. And also the depreciation in currency is not exactly negative for all the sectors in the share market. And when you look at share market, there is this diversification. And with that, the market performance, overall market performance, is very positive. As I earlier mentioned, we are doing much better than all other Asian countries when it comes to the share market.
We have been ranked as as one of the best performing share markets even during the pandemic. So I think that's a bit of a good sign there. Dilusha, now, when you look at the current research, I also believe you're very regularly updated with some of the latest research we have on the stock market, financial performance, etc. In which sectors can we expect some good performance as per the current research? I am aware that market conditions are subjected to risk and volatility, as the disclaimer goes in so many different mediums. I am aware of that. But where can we see good potential coming in, especially now that we are in 2022? Where can we expect?
You are referring to the sectors. So let me tell you a few. Not only very few, there are many sectors that is doing really well at the moment. So one is the local manufacturing sector. So as I mentioned earlier also, due to import restrictions, the local manufacturing sector is doing phenomenally well.
Yes.
And
they are almost on full capacity in many industries.
Yes, in many industries they are on full capacity and the prices are good, and they don't have that much of competition at the moment. So the local manufacturing companies are doing really well. And also the telecommunication sector. So that is one sector which is currently undervalued, deeply undervalued.
Yes.
At the same time, the dividend yields are very high in telecommunication sector. And also when you look at this data-driven future, the future for telecommunication sector is also bright.
And one would assume, just to interject there, one would assume that with work from home being now more of a norm rather than an exception,
Correct.
One would believe that also leads to more potential for the telecommunication sector, because we need to stay connected.
Correct. So you need the data, and the telecommunication is doing pretty well. And the other thing is the dollar earnings companies. So as you mentioned at the beginning also, the rupee is depreciating. So the dollar earning companies are doing really great
So
at the
this is
moment.
also where the investors need to do their own research as well, isn't it? I mean, rather than just looking at, okay, this company, the share price has gone up today, let's put money there. This company has gone down, let's not look at that. Instead, as you are very correctly saying, look at the fundamentals of a business and try to understand what sector they belong to. So, as you said, dollar earning companies. So that means more export oriented companies, I believe, and the telecommunications sector and the manufacturing. Anything else?
Renewable energy is another one, because the renewable energy is the future for energy sector, because the crude oil prices are going up. You must be aware of that. So with that, the demand for renewable energy is going up globally. And also the government support for renewable energy is also supporting this sector. And other than that, even the banking and finance. So this is also a deeply undervalued sector at the moment. And yeah, so these are the sectors you can look at.
But aren't people a little cautious about banks now because they believe that the full impact of the pandemic with regard to, because for a bank, the nightmare tends to be, bad debts and writing off. And we
The moratoriums.
moratorium. Well, moratoriums, as long as it's paid back, I think is okay.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people are worried that right now, even now, still many banks they have extended those moratoriums, which is very good and kind on their part to support the businesses and the individuals. But I think the big worry here is when it comes to the actual payback time. That will be when we will see the impact of the bad debts and etc. Whether that will have a negative impact on the banking sector performance. But do you think our banking sector is resilient enough, Dilusha?
I believe so, because the banking sector, if you look at the past performance, even at this pandemic situation, even with all these challenges, banking sector is making profits. So
And considerable profits as well.
yes, and with that, they are in a good footage to take these challenges in the future.
Okay. Interesting thoughts there. We're going to get into the more details on the stock market and your expectations into this year later on. Stay tuned. We will be back after this short break. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. I'm Taran Sekara. We are in conversation with Dilusha Gamage on the very pertinent discussion point of investing in the stock market. Dilusha, now many and echoes are there going around in so many circles saying that compared to the rest of the stock markets in the region and even in the world, that we are doing phenomenally well. It's easy to say there is also a lot of activity, but is there any particular statistic that you can share with us that shows how well the stock market is doing compared with the region?
Yes, Thandu, so if we compare the market returns, the Colombo Stock Exchange recorded above 50%, so around 57 to be exact. But when you compare the the other countries in the region, we can say it's below 20%. So like India is like around 11% return. So that is the return you get from the market. That is like the yield.
So essentially, if I put 100 rupees, I might end up, just talking as an example, there's a chance that for every 100 rupees I invest, I can get about 150.
Well, that is not the exact correct way to put that, but okay. Overall market, when we compare the overall market, like if you have invested in all the shares in the all the listed companies, well, then you are achieving that target.
Exactly. All right. So, any other factors which are driving this growth? We do see a massive wailing of growth of the stock market. What are the other factors? And also, I wanted to ask you this, since you're the expert on the stock market here, Dilusha. We hear these words like the Colombo Stock Exchange has passed, 8,000 points, 9,000 points, I believe they say 10,000, even 11,000 was passed, I believe. What exactly do these exactly mean? Because every time, these points are passed, we hear people saying, oh, now it's overrated, it will come down, but it keeps on going to the next 1,000. So what exactly does it mean why are these milestones so important?
So this milestone you're talking about, Tharinder, is the all share price index.
Correct.
So the all share price index is a index that you can compare the performance from yesterday to today, whether it has gone up or gone down. So this index is calculated, there is a special calculation for that, but it's calculated by considering the total performance of the market, the overall market.
So what is the recent highest that the stock market, this all share price index, recently passed?
If you go for the ballpark figures, yes, it's 12,000.
Okay. And I remember, Dilusha, that some time ago, maybe a few years back, passing 7,000 was seen as a major achievement. So we have come a long way as a stock market, isn't it?
Correct.
What about the digitalization aspect and the amount of new accounts that are being opened? We see a lot of discussion points on this. So how far ahead are we as a stock market when it comes to digitalization, and how is the experience in the market with regard to more investors coming in and more account openings?
Well, that is a plus point which came to the share market with the pandemic, of course. So the digitalization enabled all the shareholders or all the any Sri Lankan anywhere in the country to open a share trading account in the stock market and do their share trading on their own from wherever they live. And earlier that was not the case. So they had to come to Colombo and meet a stockbroker company, go there, fill a set of application forms, and it took time, and also it was only for Colombo or the suburbs. So with the digitalization, what happened is like it's in your palm. You take your mobile phone and you have the access to the share market, and the investors, anyone around anywhere in the country has access to the share market. So that has driven this phenomenal number of accounts that we are seeing getting opened day by day.
Understood. So let's say for someone who is watching this show, who is deciding, okay, well, stock market seems to be a good place to put the money, so let's go and put some money into it. If someone is thinking like that, and when they are deciding which stock am I going to put money into, Dilusha, what are the fundamental factors? Because what we want to avoid here, what we want to help the people who are watching this show do, is to avoid falling into the trap of where people say, oh, yesterday this stock has gone up, let's put money there. Oh, that stock is going up, let's put money there, without any proper understanding of the basic fundamentals. Because I believe when you are picking a proper stock, there has to be a fundamental behind it. There has to be certain factors that you need to monitor. So in your understanding, what are the factors that you would advise an investor, a potential investor maybe, when picking to invest in?
Well, Tharindo, in the selecting the stocks or even deciding to come and invest in the stock market, that is a personalized decision, and these decisions are highly personalized. Why I'm saying that? Now, let's say the investor that you are mentioning, that can be, as an example, that can be a person who has retired, or it can be a person who just started working and has the ability to take risk. But these two people are different, and the way they are going to invest, the stocks they are going to invest should be different. And this decision depends on the risk appetite and the investment time horizon of each individual. So the investor has to understand themselves first, how much risk they can take, what is the time frame they can invest. So whether are you going to invest long term, medium term, short term, or it is going to be a mix. So all these factors has to come in to play. And also, as you correctly mentioned, Tharindo, this understanding about the stock market, the fundamentals, the economy, that is very important for an investor to start investing in the stock market. First, they should understand the fundamentals. So in Sinhala, there's a saying, "Dana giyot khataragama, no dana giyot ataramaga kiyala." So if you know what you're doing and where you're going, where you're heading, then you will achieve your destination. If not, you're going to be lost in the system.
Understood. So let's say, for example, myself as an investor, let's say I am keen to invest into, let's say, the export sector. I'm going to pick export-oriented companies, because we hear these various terms that analysts speak. They speak about P ratios, they talk about various return rates, and even when they are observing a company, they try to look at the dividends they have given and so on. But of course, I believe now many investors, they don't wait for the dividends, they sell it when the price is right, and they try to make that capital gain out of it. But Dilusha, any particular metrics to look at or consider when picking a stock from a particular sector that I am interested in?
Well, that is also depends on person to person. So the any particular facts that they have to look at, that is based on financials, yes.
Correct.
The price earning ratios and the price to book value ratios. So if you don't have a proper understanding about these things, there's enough and more material in the website that you can find. In that also, people needs to be careful to get the information from reliable sources. So even if you look at SC Securities YouTube channel, we have given enough of videos that is explaining how to analyze a company, pick a stock based on fundamental analysis and technical analysis.
And I believe even the CSC, the Colombo Stock Exchange, is also sharing a lot of information on
correct,
this.
And Securities and Exchange Commission.
Correct.
So all these sources are very reliable, and these reliable sources, with that, it's very easy to get yourself educated about these factors.
Dilusha, when an investor is looking at balancing the risk, because as much as you want to earn good return, I mean, it's a simple equation, isn't it? Higher the risk potential, higher the return potential. I think that's been one of the golden equations and equilibriums of investing. But how do you advise that one could balance off the risk, while going for some of those high risk, high return potential stocks, same time maintaining that steady set of funds which you can count on? How do you see investors balancing these?
Well, best way, Tharinder, is diversification. So diversifying your portfolio with the risk appetite and your time horizon, that is the best way to minimize risk. So you can pick a certain amount of high risk, high return stocks, as well as high dividend yielding stocks, which gives you a kind of a fixed income, and also the low risk, very stable growth companies. So this diversification is the best way to mitigate risk. And also it's when you select and when you go for your choices, it's very important to go for reliable sources, as I mentioned earlier. And also don't solely base your investment decision based on what you hear, like rumors or social media. So
there are so many people, I mean, there are so many YouTube channels which are now trying to advise, put your money here, put your money there. Is this company going to be the next big beverage giant? We see people popping up all over saying, oh, you know what, I've now just stopped on the roadside, I thought I'll share this tip. I mean, it's very dangerous to listen to just some random people and make the decisions. It can work on your day, but what about when it doesn't? That's the question.
Well, social media and these YouTube videos, I'm not totally against it, because these investors, they have their freedom, right? You think about a stock, and anybody can talk about what they like.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. And the investors has to be, they need to know, like, to aware where they get the information from, and are they going to blindly believe these statements and what they see, or are they going to do some groundwork and find these, because there are the registered advisors that you can get advice from, and there are reliable sources, as I mentioned at the beginning. And also the economic, the fundamental analysis, like this awareness is freely available.
True.
So anybody can get the required knowledge. So with that, it's not that difficult.
Dilusha, what about the steps to start trading? Because someone who is watching this show, who is thinking, okay, look, you know what, I want to start trading. What are the steps? Like, what would be the ABCs for anyone to when getting into the stock exchange? What's the process? And some people are worried, okay, look, we need large amounts of money to start trading, but I don't think that is the case. What would be your explanation on that? The steps involved, and is there any particular minimum amount needed to start trading? Lay us the conditions.
Okay. So the steps involved are, first of all, you need to understand that whether you are going to invest in the stock market, as I mentioned earlier, with your risk appetite and your investment time horizon, make that decision first. And if you start investing in the stock market, first of all, an investor should open a share trading account. We call it a CDS account.
And I think this can be done using the CSC mobile app.
Yes, that's right. So I mentioned about the digitalization earlier.
Yes.
So with that, the account opening process has become very simple. And as long as you have a smartphone in your hand, you can open an account. But of course, you need to be a legal citizen, above 18 years of age, and a Sri Lankan. So with that conditions, you can open an account through your mobile app. And it's very easy. Just download the CSE mobile app, and in that you can see how to open CDS account. You can go to our services and open CDS account. And then it's just a matter of filling up a form, something like you fill in like a physical form, but in the mobile. So you give all the information as required. And also they will ask you to upload few documents like your NIC and billing proofs, bank account proofs. So it's just, you just have to take pictures and upload. So with that, and in the process you can select your stockbroker as well. And once you submit, it's just a matter of 1 or 2 days, you get the account, your account will be ready. And to open the account, Tharindu, you don't need any money. Account opening is free of charge. But when you want to invest money, well, even for that, there is no minimum requirement. There are shares you can buy even less than 1 rupee. So it depends on how much you want to invest and how much you can invest. With that, you can go ahead.
Very interesting indeed. So the capital markets are indeed easily accessible to our citizens, just a matter of getting started. Let's continue this discussion after this short break. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. We are in conversation with Dilusha, Gamage, and the focus of today's discussion is none other than the stock market. How do we start investing, the return potential, and what should you know about? Dilusha, now let's talk about this massive number of IPOs. We are looking at a scenario where in the recent times we've seen almost a new IPO happening every week kind of a scenario. There are so many companies which are getting listed, they are going on to the stock market. Are we seeing like a bubble or something here, or is it positive signs for the market?
Well, bubble, definitely not, Tharindu. This is a very positive sign, and these companies which are getting listed are very well established companies, and the listing process is...
Let's talk about that. How does the listing happen?
Yeah, so a listing process is it's very well defined, and there are rules and regulations set by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Colombo Stock Exchange. So any company to get listed, there's a process that they have to take to get the company ready before getting listed. And then there are certain criteria that a particular company should meet, that also depending on which board that the company is getting listed.
What are these boards?
So at the moment there are 3. So they have the Dilusha board, the main board, and now we have the Empower board as well.
Okay, tell us about these 3 boards.
Well, it depends on the company's size and the profitability.
I mean, the main board is where the big companies, the big boys and the big girls get to go to.
Yes.
Then the Dilusha board?
That would be a step below that.
Okay.
Because those are the only 2 boards we had for long time.
What is
and
the
recently
board?
Well, that is for the new companies, which is with a smaller market capitalization, which is not ready to be listed in the Dilusha board or main board, but need the equity funding. So these companies can go for a listing in the Empower board. So this listing process is it's a very well organized process. So there are rules and regulations that they have to follow. So these companies are well established, well performing companies, and as you mentioned, even though sometimes we see like few IPOs a week, but still these IPOs are getting oversubscribed many times.
And I heard some companies are getting oversubscribed 7 times, 13 times, and so on, Dilusha. So clearly people are interested. So let's say when a IPO is happening, how exactly does that company allocate the ownership? And if it's oversubscribed, that means I believe if the company is looking for 1 million where you get 5 million or 6 million, etc. When it's oversubscribed, how do companies manage that? Tell us this process. Well, we hear these terms, but not many people know really what happens in the due process.
Well, in that case, when the companies get oversubscribed after announcing an IPO, then the company has to decide who's getting how many shares. And the demand for the shares is more than what they are going to allocate. So in that case, the allocations goes a little lower. So
And
this
people
is
who gave money, some of that money might be returned to them.
yes, and the allocation percentages is given in the prospectus. When they come on board, they have to publish this document called prospectus. So, and also after you get the subscriptions, the company director board can decide the allocation based on by following the rules and regulations set out by the SEC and CSE.
So, with regard to the IPO process, so let's say when a company decides, let's go and list ourselves, and let's say they pick a particular board, then what happens, Dilusha? Is it a case where we see these road shows taking place, we see a lot of promotion activities taking place? What is that exact process?
That comes towards the end of the process, but at the beginning, the company needs to be prepared themselves to be listed, because there are governance matters that they have to sort out.
Right.
Like it's given in the stock exchange listing rules. So if anybody is interested,
So I
they
believe
can
that
go on.
all the financial statements of so many years, auditor reports, am I right?
Yes, that's for few, and valuations, and then they have to get their corporate governance in place when it comes to the director board, and there are certain boards in the director board, the subcommittees. So all these things has to be in place before they go and submit an application. So when everything is in place, they can prepare an application and submit. So all this process is explained very well in the Colombo Stock Exchange website. If you go to the website and go for listing rules, then you can see what are the criteria they have to meet, and what are the things they have to be prepared of before submitting an application.
Correct.
And in the process, they can select who's going to manage the IPO, like managers to the issue, bankers to the issue, then the secretaries, registrars to the issue, lawyers. So all these parties will come in play to help the company. So with that, it goes on public.
And I believe the CSE also is doing a great, remarkable job in getting more investors, because stock exchange, I believe, used to be one party, or rather one entity that was more Colombo-centric, but now we see people from all over the country, and I even came across somebody from my own village down south, Dilusha, who recently said that he got some savings of the mother worth about 5 lakhs, and has managed to put it, and now over the last 2 years grown it to somewhere around 8 lakhs by investing in the right places indeed. But that shows that this is going beyond the cities into the entire economy, isn't it? And that's always a good sign.
Correct. Your geographical location doesn't matter anymore. So anybody anywhere from the country can start investing in the stock market. And not only that, Colombo Stock Exchange is taking a lot of effort and steps to take this not only from Colombo to the village, but also into the foreign currencies, foreign countries as well. Recently, we saw that Dubai road show that they have organized.
Correct.
So these are good initiatives that we are seeing.
Has there been good interest from the investors in Dubai as well?
Yes, and all the news are there in the public forums.
Fantastic. Good signs, at least in some aspect of the economy. That's always good to hear. As very correctly said, there is pockets of good news we need to focus on, and not only the negativity. Dilusha, another concern that a lot of people have is our market being manipulated? Because we are not the biggest market in the region, and when you're a small market, tendencies and the chances of manipulations tend to get a little bit higher. What measures do we see the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, taking to ensure that any market manipulations or any unethical scandals, I would say, will occur? What are the steps that the SEC is taking towards preventing these?
Well, Tarindo, I'm glad that you asked this question about manipulation, because there's a lot of talk about that.
Indeed.
But
A
at
lot
the
of
same
concern
time,
about it.
yes. But at the same time, I cannot really talk on behalf of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
For sure.
That is the regulatory body. But at the same time, if I give my opinion
as a market
on that,
observer, as someone whom I would say is in the front row of the whole action.
Well, Securities and Exchange Commission is very well governed, and this is at par with all the other frontier markets in the Asia and even in the world. And even in the past 10 years, we have seen that SEC is taking the necessary steps to mitigate these gaps which were there. Even the Securities and Exchange Commission recently amended or introduced the new SEC Act. So with that, the SEC is getting themselves prepared, and the rules and regulations are in place. And if you say manipulation, so how exactly you're going to define manipulation? So it is a matter of people who are interested in investing in the stock market, the demand and the shares and the supply. And if somebody is interested in investing in a loss-making company, nobody is going to stop that person. That person has the freedom to do so. But at the same time, there are rules and regulations, and all these are under observation. So SEC and also CSE, these observations is there, and if there are any kind of manipulations, it's getting corrected then and there. But I don't see any manipulations in the stock market at the moment, even though people talk about that, there are concerns about that. But the stock market performance is backed by the performance of the companies listed in the stock market. It is not like only the stock prices are going up while the companies are not doing well. That is not the case. So this is backed by the good performance of the listed companies.
Understood. On a final note, Dilusha, a point that you also mentioned, but let me reiterate that and ask that again here. The foreign investor sentiments, because we see that some of the frontier markets and the emerging markets are getting a lot of attraction of funds from the foreign investors. But in Sri Lanka, I think over the last few years, we see more domestic citizens, getting involved and investing rather than the foreign investments. What is right now the foreign investor sentiments regarding the Sri Lankan market, number one, and number two, what should the government do in order to boost that confidence and attract more investments?
Well, foreign market sentiment is in the recent past, yes, as you correctly said, it was negative. But that is not necessarily because their sentiment is negative on the Colombo Stock Exchange or the listed companies per se. This is more of a macro issue.
Let's say they are having a negative sentiment about our economy,
about the country downgradings and the reserves, depletion of the reserves, right, and the foreign the exchange rates.
Massive black marks.
These issues are there. So there are certain foreign funds which cannot invest in Sri Lanka in these situations. But even we have seen that foreigners have been selling the profit-making, well-performing company shares in the Colombo Stock Exchange. So yes, in the recent past, the foreigners have been net sellers. But this is a very, I would say it's a short-term issue. And when the country situation is improving, this is going to get corrected. But now let's say if the country's the foreign exchange, now the rupee depreciation, and these issues can get sorted with the probably with the tourism increasing, because now the country is ready. As I correctly mentioned at the beginning, the vaccination process is phenomenally well, and we are in par with the Port City project, and the hotel sector is ready to take the season guests.
Yeah. And we believe the Port City project will be a good flagship project for Sri Lanka to show to the rest of the world we are ready for foreign investors.
Yet to be seen. Yes, it's there, and also at the same time now in the case of new generation of investors that I have been talking about then locally. Yes. At the same time, we will be having this foreign individual investors also coming into the market with the digitalization process, the next few steps. Whereas when the foreign investors also would be able to open accounts and start investing in the stock market. Sure. And also government, now when you say what are the steps taken by the government, well, they have done their part. They are doing their part. And if you had seen, the central bank has published their roadmap. And now the strategy is there. But now what the foreigners needs to see is that this stability these issues getting sorted as per the plan, and they want to see how it is delivering. So when these deliverables are coming our way, and when these issues are getting sorted, of course the foreign investors would definitely come back to Sri Lanka, because as I mentioned, the Sri Lankan market is very attractive when it compares to the other regional markets.
Yes.
So it's a matter of time.
Dilusha Gamage, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your valuable thoughts and advice to the citizens of this country on what they need to look at when investing and sharing with us insights on the potential of the stock market. Wishing you and your team all the best for the year 2022, and may it be a year where our stock market too reaches greater and newer heights. Thank you for joining us and all the best.
Thank you, Tanidhi. Thank you for having me.
So there you have it. If you're someone looking to invest, stock market is definitely attractive and ready for the investors. Tread in that path carefully though. Make sure you listen to the right advisors and choose your investments with a focus on the proper fundamentals. I'm Tharandu Amrasekara and I will see you with the next episode. This is Bisnomics.